Yeah, good, okay. Okay, hi everyone, thank you all for coming. The fact that you're here really shows us that whoever's here really cares about our children and what, you really want to learn about different topics on how to keep our children safe. I am Dr. Shani Verschleiser. This is my colleague Sarit Rubenstein. We started Magenu about 4 years ago. It's an organization that's dedicated to the prevention of child abuse in our community. We do trainings for administration, we do training for staff, parents, and we do children trainings of all ages. Tonight's workshop is really going to focus on the different types of lures and tactics that predators use to get access to children in order to commit the abuse. The focus tonight is sort of the pre-stage, sort of to prevent that child from getting into that situation to begin with before anything could chas v'shalom occur. And the second half of it is basically the adult's responsibility in that child's life, the role of the trusted adult in the child's life after you have taught them all the information that they need. Okay, so we're going to begin.
Okay, welcome. The first set of questions coming up, if I can have a little bit of audience participation. What do you think, percentage-wise, is the likelihood of a child being abducted? What do you think? Throw out some percentages to me of a child being abducted. 10%? 2%?
What?
8?
Right. How
8.
many of you think your child is at risk of being abducted?
Right.
Let's put it that way. Raising your hand.
Okay.
Nobody, exactly. Yeah,
what about child going home with an unfamiliar woman? The child's lost in the museum. A woman approaches him, says, "Oh, you seem lost. You know what? Why don't you come with me home, and we will call your mother from my house." How many of you think your child would go with that woman home?
Raise
of hand. Okay, a few. What about a child opening up the door to a stranger? A man knocks on the door, says, "Please, I need help. My car broke down. I need to use your phone. Please open up the door." The child looks outside, has no idea who the man is. He does not look Jewish. What do you think? Your child would open? Okay, a few. What about child taking food from a food vendor? Food vendor is on the street, offers your child something to eat, says, "You look like you're hungry. Here, would you like something?" Okay, so not a lot. Okay, what about a child taking a ride from their friend's father? They're at school and their friend's father pulls up and says, "You know what? Instead of going by bus, it'll be much quicker if you come home with me. I'll take you home." How many of you think your child would go into the car? I would expect a lot more hands because I think most children tend to do that. What about a child opening up the door for a UPS or UPS guy that comes weekly, the delivery guy from the food store, maybe the dry cleaners? Okay. What about accepting a gift from a family member, maybe a favorite uncle who says, "You know, I know your mom doesn't let you have an iPod, but all your friends have an iPod, and she'll come around eventually. I'm going to give it to you because I think you're really special, and when we'll try to convince her when she comes around, she'll let you keep it." How many of you think your child would take it? Okay, a lot more hands. So really what you see from this is that your child going into a car with, or going home with a stranger, or taking something from a stranger, or opening up the door from a stranger is very unlikely because, as every parent knows, kids are not just going to open up the door randomly and go with someone. They're more inclined to be convinced to do things that are unsafe when it's someone that they don't consider to be a stranger. So we really need to retire this stranger danger concept. It's something that I think most kids are very well trained in. Stay away from the stranger. So we need to retire that concept of stranger danger. It's actually not effective for many reasons. One is because the child does not get what stranger means. If you ever ask a child what a stranger is, they usually go by appearances and mannerisms. Ugly, disheveled, someone that looks the part, mean, angry. They don't think that someone that's kind, attractive, put together, in a business suit, they don't see that person as the stranger. The Center for Missing and Exploited Children actually says, when questioned, children will often describe a stranger as someone who is ugly or mean. They do not perceive attractive or friendly people as strangers. So that already tells you that right off the bat, for your child, a stranger has to look the part of a stranger. It also is not effective because adults don't practice it. Your child's with you, and what do you do throughout the whole day? You're talking to strangers throughout the whole day. The UPS guy comes, you are friendly to him. You know, you're on the street and someone asks you for the time, you respond. So your child is watching you constantly talk to strangers, and then you're telling them, don't talk to strangers. So you're not practicing what they are supposed to be doing, which is very confusing to a child. They learn from what they see. And furthermore, also, they have to realize, which a lot of children don't, that adults have different rules than children. I can't talk to a stranger because from experience and the fact that I'm older and I have that experience behind me, I know much more, and I'll be able to assess much more the dangers than a child. But a child automatically will see what they see, and that's what they expect. So what should parents be teaching their children? If we're taking away the whole stranger danger concept, what are we teaching our children? So we have to teach the new concept, which is stranger awareness. It's basically the concept of what is a stranger. And you really need to go home, really, tomorrow, sit with your child and ask, what is a stranger? What does a stranger look like? Ask your child to give you a description of a stranger. You'll be surprised to hear all these same things, that in their mind it's someone that's ugly and scary and mean looking. Ask them to draw a picture of a stranger. Show them random images of people, random images, women, men, random images of people, and ask them, is that a stranger? Define a stranger. Very important that you have to start teaching your children. Stranger is anyone you do not know personally. And when we mean personally means I've gone to their house, I know where they live, how many kids they have. We have a relationship. Anyone that the child does not know in an intimate, personal setting becomes a stranger. For your children, the UPS guy that comes every week is no longer a stranger. As the Center for Missing Children writes, that if someone talks to a child or is even around a child more than once, that person may lose his or her stranger status to the child. The child may then think he or she knows the person. Children also want to be helpful, thrive on adult approval, and respond to adult authority. So if someone with ill intent asks a child to perform tasks or tells a child something that has happened to a loved one, there's a good chance the child may be tricked into going with that person. My own daughter, when she was 3 years old, was with me one night, and she says, "Mommy, remember that man, Mommy's friend?" And I said, "Mommy's friend?" "Yeah, Mommy's friend. He came over, and and she kept talking about this guy, and could not understand who she was talking about because no one had been over. And then as we kept talking, I realized it was the plumber who had come to fix our pipes, and he was there for a little bit, and I offered him a drink, and in her mind, he became Mommy's friend, which means that if he would be knocking on that door and he would come into the house easily to her, if he wanted to ask her to go somewhere or go with him, she would, because to her, he was Mommy's friend.
Yeah, and I had the same similar incident with my son, who actually opened I was upstairs feeding the baby, and downstairs we had my son, and he was about 5, and my daughter, who was about 3 at the time, sitting by the table. I came downstairs, and my son tells me, "Oh, Ma, you know that lady was here." "What lady?" "You know that lady, she comes all the time, that lady." I have to go back in my videotape. I happen to have videotape of the outside of my house. It was the Con Edison lady, the same lady that comes every month. He opened the door for her. She came in the house, went down to my basement to read the meter, and left the house. A perfect stranger in my house. I had no clue about it because I was upstairs, but he knew her because she's by my house every month, the same lady. This is the way children think. Furthermore, about 3 years ago, my daughter in pre-1A was with a group of friends, with her whole class. They went to the park. You know how schools in the summer, they walk to the park, you know, to play a little? While she was with her entire class, she separated from her class, went over to this adult male in the park, had a very long conversation with him. He was doing exercise, and she's a very curious kid. Chazdei Hashem, nothing happened to her. She returned to the group. But when I was talking to her about the potential dangers, her response to me was, "Oh, Ma, don't worry, Ma. He was really nice. He was really nice, Ma, don't worry." And that was her definition of what was okay, because the man was nice to her, therefore it was okay.
And that's really what you're stressing. It's not about appearances. It's not about mannerisms. A stranger is anyone that you don't know. We're going to go even further, because as your children are younger, even till the age of 14, 15, 16, they should know that a stranger is any adult that's talking to you when Mommy or Abba are not around. If you're not with me that person falls into the category of a stranger. Because as an adult, if I'm with my children, it's okay for them to be conversing if I'm there. But if not, I don't want them to be engaging in conversations with even individuals that may be neighbors or people from shul. The bottom line is they need to have that concept of the stranger becomes someone that's a stranger when they're by themselves, especially when they're younger, for sure, across the board. We go into the schools and we teach these programs. When we ask the kids to actually tell us, draw us pictures of what strangers looks like, this is some examples. If you see snakes, they think of them as people who are creepy. Smoking, that guy, they have a whole thing, suspicious objects on the foot. He's got a backpack, he's got a skull on his shirt. The other guy looks ragged. These are actual pictures from different schools that children drew. A few more tattoos. One of the boys wrote, the freaky guy. T-shirts that are inappropriate. This is their vision of who a stranger is. We then show them this picture and we ask them, who is the stranger in the picture? What do you think? Which letter do you think the kids pick as the stranger? C. Perfect. Every class.
We've been in 20 schools so far. 20 schools, class by class. Every single school, every single class, majority of the class says C. It's only after we start asking them specific questions, well, what's A's name? Where does B live? Does D have any children? Do you start seeing the light bulb of, oh wait, I don't know these people. But it's only after we start having those specific questions that comes in.
How many children have C?
Thousands. It's already thousands and thousands of schools and children that we've gone to. And across the board, they all answer the same, because to them, C looks like a little bit more creepy than the rest of the people that look very benign and normal. So then you go into the next level. So basically you're going home, you're asking your kids to describe to you what a stranger is, and you're very clearly showing them pictures of nice looking women, businessmen, saying they're all strangers. Because we don't know who they are, they become a stranger. The next step you want to do is you want to really give them the concept. We don't want to scare children, and that's never been our goal. Our goal is Hashem created a wonderful world. We are so blessed to be in this world, and most people are good people. Scare tactics are not going to work. You're not trying to scare your child. Most people are good people, but, and that's the but, we just don't know. Here you've got 2 apples. We show them the 2 apples. Look the same, look wonderful. But until you open them up, you have no idea what the inside is like. So there are people that are not well, and you could say that to your child, even a young child. There are people that are not well, and they don't have the best intentions. And therefore, we need to make sure that we follow the rules across the board. We don't assume someone looks nice, therefore we can just go with them. We have to follow the rules across the board, because again, appearances may be deceiving. Okay, so how it ends up falling out is the whole concept. And again, what's also very important of why we can't teach stranger danger, because there may be situations where your child needs help from a stranger. For example, especially younger children, when there's an emergency or they get lost, they're going to have to approach a stranger. And if you're making it across the board that they can't talk to a stranger, then they won't know who to turn to. So you want to be able to give them that there are something called safe strangers. Individuals that in situations where you need help, you could turn to these people, such as the number 1, mother with children. Across the board, mother with children, no matter Jewish or not Jewish, falls under the safest stranger. As kids get older, and again, this is age appropriate, for a young kid, 3, 4, 5, just do mother with children. As they get older, add cashier, the store employee, the person in the information desk or customer service, the security guard. Again, really the definition of safe stranger is that a child is approaching the adult when they are hurt or they need help. The adult is not approaching the child. Obviously, if an adult is approaching a child because there's an emergency and sees that the child is lost or needs help, that's a different situation. But a child should know that if an adult is just approaching them to engage in random conversation, their red alert flag should go up, because a child should be approaching the adult if they need that help. This is for the younger kids, but don't forget the older kids. We tend to think that, oh, okay, we cover our younger kids, but younger kids we're with much more, and we keep them protected much more. So we have to focus also on the older child. The older children, they believe they're invincible. They believe nothing is going to happen. Please, I'm tough. What already is going to happen? We need to explain to them and go through different situations where they may need to be able to find a safe stranger. Child gets off on the wrong bus stop and is not familiar with the neighborhood that they're with. You do not want them randomly walking up and down streets looking lost. Children should always be walking with a purpose. They should be looking aware. They should be looking like they know exactly where they're going. So a child wandering off looking lost is a prime target. You want to make sure that the child knows if you get off the wrong stop and you're not sure where you are and you don't have a cell phone, look for that mother with children. Go into the store. There's stores. Walk into the store. Ask the cashier, can I please use your phone? Try to keep them very aware of these are situations that may come up. Separating from a friend. You know, you set it up that they have a buddy and they're walking home with a buddy, but their buddy gets angry at them and says, oh, you know what, you just made me so mad, I'm going alone, and walks away from them. Or they get separated from the buddy. They need to find an adult that they need to go approach, and that has to be a safe stranger that they can approach. Adult asking them for directions. A child needs to know across the board. An adult should not be asking a child for directions. If I'm an adult and I need to get somewhere, I'm looking for another adult. I'm not approaching a child to tell me how to get to where I need to go. An adult that's asking a child for directions, that's red alert to the child. I need to walk away. Child being followed. If a child gets that sense, there's a beautiful concept that Hashem created us with, and that's this gut feeling that we get when something is not right. And Hashem gave it to each of us. We have to train our children to become very in tune to that feeling of, this doesn't feel right. If a child is walking down the street and they feel like they're being followed, if it's a car, they should turn around and go back the other way, because again, cars have to turn around, and there's so many tactics out there, but you want to be talking to your kids about this, because if you're letting your child go out by themselves, they're going to school alone, they're going to take the city bus, you want to give them tools of how to stay safe. Invading a child's personal space on, as you can see from the images, on a train, somebody coming too close to your daughter. We've had that many times. In a store, people coming up very close and standing in the personal space of a child. The child should know that if someone is in my personal space, I have the right to stay safe. I have the right to be able to be protected. I can tell that person to step back, and if I can't because it's embarrassing or I'm shy, I can go look for somebody that I can ask for help. A mother with children, again, an individual that can help me. Unsafe strangers are basically strangers, again, that are tricky. And their whole goal is obviously to try and engage children in conversation. Some of their tricks, that's a great backpack. Where did you get it? My kid would love it. You know, making them feel like, hey, or in a store. Wow, you know what? I need to buy my son a present. You look about the same age. You know, is there any games that you really like? I'd love to get your advice. And engaging them in conversation, that's basically the start. Can you tell me how to get to the main street? I'm lost. Your mom was in an accident and asked me to pick you up. This is actually the highest rate sort of thing, because children instinctively, when someone says that a loved one is hurt, they panic. And in that panic, they will do things that are not safe. One of it is go with whoever is trying to lead them. So you need to inform your child very clearly that if you were hurt or something happened to you, you would make sure, if you were well enough to speak, to tell that person where your child is, you would make sure to get the right person to go to them. You're not going to send some random person or someone that they recognize from shul, or you're going to send someone that they're very aware of is going to be the person, a mother, a grandmother, a father, someone that they would know, okay, that person is coming to me. So they have, but again, what you're going to hear over and over tonight, you need to be having these conversations. If you think your kids are savvy enough that they just get it and they know it, they really don't. If you're not telling them, they're just not going to know. Can you help me? It's a mitzvah, especially for our children. We bring them, they're in school all day, and from a young age they're learning derech eretz and mitzvos and all that concept. They have to understand that if someone asks them to do a mitzvah under the guise of a mitzvah, oh, you're such a mitzvah boy, can you help me? That they have to understand when it comes to their safety, they need to check first with you before they can do anything. They cannot just go and help somebody. They have to understand the difference. Your dad sent me to pick you up. He got tied up at work. You'll hear later on from Shani where this one is huge and why we are here tonight. And the definition of an unsafe stranger really is the adult approaches the child. There's no emergency, there's nothing, and the adult basically approaches the child to engage them. Our next video is a movie clip. Just so you could see, they did a couple of where they tried to trick kids, and you'll see some of these tactics in play, just so you can understand what the lure is. Hold on. 1 second.
Look what happens when our actor approaches 8-year-old Jake.
Hey, big guy, you know where the zoo is, man? I'm looking for the zoo. I'm a little lost.
He not only talks to the stranger, but it's like that way, he turns that way. He comes right into the car.
Can you show me how to go? That's just right here.
Okay, so you go like right there.
Okay.
And you go like, but when our actor takes it a step further,
Do you want to give it and show me how to get there? I don't think you're there.
the look on Jake's face changes.
What'd you say?
Sorry, Bob. I'm lost. Could you give me directions? Is it down downtown?
Downtown? That's on the other side of the interstate.
Could you show me, please? I cannot figure this out.
Even if you notice in that first clip where the boy is polite, it's one of the things that will teach you. It's very important to teach a child that when an adult is asking them to do something that goes against all their safety rules, it's not time to have derech eretz and be polite. They need to get away. They don't have to respond. They don't have to answer. An adult should not be asking a child for directions. You must teach your children. They have to start trusting that gut instinct. If something is telling them that it's not okay and they're feeling it, that something's a little off, trust that. This isn't right. This isn't okay. Their first reaction, first and foremost reaction needs to be, I need to get away and tell. I need to get away and go tell somebody. They don't need to be responding or be polite. Again, our children especially are much more vulnerable because we teach them to be obedient. We teach them to have derech eretz. We teach them to listen to adults. So imagine an adult coming to them and asking them for something. Instinctively, they're going to listen because they have that in their head so ingrained. They need to understand that the overriding mitzvah is v'nishmartem la'odem l'nafshosechem, that they must keep themselves safe, and in order to keep themselves safe, they must follow the rules. Red flag for a child should be an adult asking a child to break their rules or to do something that they were taught is not safe, and they must be aware in all situations. Okay. So we just covered really strangers, right? If they're outside and there's a stranger, someone like the man asking for directions. But is that enough? Like, what about individuals that the child knows? Because really, when you think about it, okay, great. So they'll know to stay away from the guy who asked them directions. They'll know to walk away from that. But what about the person that they know from shul that says, hey, at the door, knocks on the door and says, hi, you know what, your dad told me to come. We have a meeting and I need to come and meet him at the house. Are they going to know how to react when it's people that they're more familiar with or people that are Jewish? The number one thing we get in the classroom is when we ask them questions like, am I a stranger? No, you're Jewish. It's like to them, it's, well, you're Jewish, that means you're not a stranger anymore. And it's wonderful that we have this cohesive sense of community and everyone in the Jewish world is wonderful, but at the same token, children need to stick to rules. Those rules are very important, especially in that. So how do we teach that concept? Just very quickly, statistics-wise, 93% of abuse is not from a stranger. It's from someone that the child knows. And most often, again, 47% is an extended or family member. So we need to make sure that the rules we're teaching children is across the board. Whether it's an uncle, an aunt, a brother, a sister, whatever it is, our rules are going to stay consistent throughout. Bottom line, adults should be socializing with adults. Children, young or old, must be told that another adult should not be engaging them in conversation, should not be asking them to do things, should not be asking them unless the adult allowed them, should not be giving them things, should not be asking them to come with them places. This applies across the board. A child needs to know that no matter who it is, if the rule is a rule is a rule, it stays consistent across the board. Okay, so what are the rules in your house, and where do you draw the line? Again, we need a little bit of participation from the audience. When it comes to opening up the door for a grandparent, UPS guy, delivery guy for one of their friends, what's the rule in your house? Child's allowed to open up the door? How many by raise of hand? Think your child will open up the door. For a grandparent, UPS guy, see, more people are like, I'm not sure I want to like raise my hand because I know this is a bad thing. So let me ask you, good. So let me ask you something. So the grandparent, now you've said fine, no problem. Let's move a second away from a grandparent. Let's start with the UPS guy, right? Your child sees the UPS guy every week. By us, it's the same guy all the time. He already knows. He brings the packages. The kids know him. He waves when he's driving. When we went into the schools and we actually asked the girls, this was 7th grade girls, we were in the classroom and we asked them, what's the rule? If the UPS guy knocks on your door, for sure, I open up the door. What do you mean? He has a package. But you know the UPS guy? Yeah, it's Mike. Mike's our neighborhood UPS guy. Everyone knows him. He's so friendly. He waves to us like... So I said, okay, fine, no problem. Let's take it a step further. Mike, you open up the door for Mike. Your parents aren't home. You open up the door for Mike. And Mike says to you, oh, you know what? I really need to use the restroom. Can I please come in and use the restroom? Now what is your child doing? And you had to see the faces on these girls' reaction because you saw that they were like, well, I don't know. Because I opened up the door for Mike now, and now Mike wants to use the restroom. And what do I say? No, Mike? You can't come in? It is very hard for a child to make that distinction. We have one of our educators who teaches in the schools who said that when she was 12 years old, she was at home. There was a knock at the door. She was home with her younger sister. There was a knock at the door, and it was this guy that comes over all the time. Very friendly with her parents, comes over a lot. He was collecting from Eretz Yisrael. He was there pretty much at least 3-4 times a year. And her parents always housed him. He was there a lot. And she opened up the door for him, and he said, hi, are your parents home? And she says, they're not. He goes, can I please get a drink? And she said, instinctively she felt, I really don't want to let him in. Like she was uncomfortable, but she couldn't say no, right? He's asking her for a drink. So she let him inside. And he went inside and he took a drink from the kitchen. And then he sat down on the chair in the kitchen and he pulled her onto his lap. 12 years old. She was completely... Every part of her wanted to scream, and she couldn't move. And she said it was b'chasdei Hashem that there was a knock. The doorbell rang. Her brother had left something in the house, her older brother, and the guy quickly jumped up. She ran quickly to open up the door for her brother, and the guy left. But the bottom line is, if your child thinks that opening up the door is okay, and you're giving them that choice of who it's okay to, then what happens is they don't know where they draw the line. And that is what we find so crucial. That you know what, you saying to them, you can open up for grandma. It takes 2 seconds extra for them to say, and I have it in my house, that they turn around and say, Mommy, Safta's at the door, can I please open? It's 2 seconds. But it also lets me have, and the way we teach it to the kids, it's just derech eretz. If I'm not ready for Zaidi to come into the house, you're giving me that little heads up, Zaidi's at the door, can I open? And it's allowing a child to be consistent throughout. My own kids, and again, trained from young, this is a rule that you have to repeat over and over. The dry cleaners guy comes. Now, the dry cleaners guy, I use Mr. Clean. So it's Chaim Spiro, who their kids go to my daughter's school. My daughter actually knows his daughters. They live right next door to my brother and sister-in-law. So he's a familiar guy, not a stranger by any means. And he said he came over one day, knocked on the door, and he said he was watching my daughters from inside because there's a window by the door. He's watching them, sort of thinking, like, not sure. Are they going to open, not open? And he keeps knocking, and my daughter comes over and she opens up the door, and he says, okay, can I bring in the dry cleaners? And he brings in the dry cleaners and he puts it down. And he called me up and he said, I want to tell you that even me coming into the house, I kept thinking, so not safe for them that they opened up the door. And when I came home, I had a conversation with them and I said, girls, we're taught this all the time. And my daughter looked at me, she's 12, and she said, but mommy, I know him, I know his daughters, I go to his house, he lives right next door. And I said, Bubala, you have to remember the rule is the rule is the rule. There's no you deciding when it's okay. It has to be, this is the rule, I don't open up the door, and you're consistent with it throughout. 2 weeks later, I pull up with my husband and I see he's at the door knocking. And I said to my husband, we're not going out. I want to see what happens, because both my daughters were home. And we're watching and we're watching. He's standing there, and he starts walking way back to his van. So I get out and I said, hi, and we're here, you know. And I go and open up the door, and my daughters run at me and they said, Mommy, we didn't open. We heard the door and we went and we hid by the couch. He shouldn't see us, because they were embarrassed that he's going to see them standing there. But the rule has to be consistent, because the minute you're allowing your child to choose when it's okay, they just might make the mistake of not knowing when it's okay. So you want to know that they're making that consistent decision. Answering the phone. Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just have a question.
Yeah.
So I understand the point of not putting them in a situation where they have to make that decision, but there are people I know in my home, I don't know if other people are the same way, that have access to my house regardless. Like my kids' grandparents can come in anytime that they want.
Okay, so again, she was just saying, again, in her house, there are people that have access to her house and are able to come in. Now again, if you have that set up, that you have people that obviously you're trusting enough that they know how to get into your house, then again, you have to be, that's something that your kids know. These are individuals, they're not going to answer the door. Here's the big clincher, and you'll see from our next video. The minute someone knocks, and a child goes over to see who's at the door, they've already put themselves into a situation that is dangerous, because whoever's on the other side of the door very quickly gets a sense of what's going on inside. So you want to make sure that if that person has access to your house, they're coming in, you know, and they have that.
Also,
again,
if they have access to your house, right, and they're coming in, that's fine. But let's say something happens where the other lock got locked and they can't get into the combination, right? You want your child to then call you and say,
correct,
you know, so and so's by the door, and he's saying through the door, Zidi's saying or Grandma's saying through the door that the other lock is locked. Can I open it? Because what happens if someone says through the door, your mom gave me the combination, it's just not working? At that point, your kid again then has to decide all of these issues. It's too much to decide. If somebody can get in by themselves, they can get in by themselves. But once they can't, once that extra lock is locked, even if your kid thinks they know that you gave them that combination, you still want them to give you that phone call. Is it okay if I open that other door? It just sets a grand rule that I'm always asking mommy, I'm always asking daddy this rule, as opposed to making that decision on their own.
okay, answering the phone, same. Your child's allowed to answer the phone at home? Okay, you want to make sure that the child knows, especially younger children, that they're not answering the phone. There's no reason to. We have answering machines. There's so much access today. Anyone who can't reach you at home, I know, if it's someone that needs me, they all have my cell number. So it's not like back in the days where the only way to access you was through your house phone. If they need to reach you, they can reach you. I would rather my child not be the secretary who has to answer questions on the phone. And you have to let children know that. I can't begin to tell you, our group, one of the girls here that's here from the group, they were making phone calls for the school's PTA, and the girl was saying how every second grader was answering the phone. And these second graders are not equipped to give out the right information. My own daughters were home one night, and my daughter calls me, and my 12-year-old, and she says, Mommy, please don't be upset. And I said, Boobala, as long as you tell me the truth, you know Mommy doesn't get upset. She goes, okay, Mommy, by mistake, the phone was ringing, and Eliana saw that it said, she's my 9-year-old, it said Rafi on it. Rafi's my son. So she went to pick it up because there's caller ID. So I always tell them, if there's certain people like Mommy's cell on the caller ID, she could pick it up. So she saw Rafi, she thought it was her brother, she picked it up. It was Rafi's Rebbe. because that's the way he's on my phone, is Rafi's Rebbe. So she picked it up, and she said right away, my daughter said, Eliana, the man said, she heard it was a man, and he said, can I speak to your parents? And right away, my daughter handed it to her big sister. And her big sister said, my parents are not available. Please call them back. And she hung up. And she said, Mommy, I know we didn't do the right thing because we picked up the phone, but right away we hung up. And, you know, I said, great, you did an amazing job. And I'm so happy you told me, because that's what we even teach the kids. You will make mistakes and they will get it wrong, but they have to tell. And as long as they tell you, you could then rework the system and review it. So I said, you did a great job. 2 minutes after I get off with her, I get a call from Rafi's Rebbe. Hi, Mrs. Rubenstein, da-da-da, I want to tell you some stuff. We talk, and then at the very end, he says, Mrs. Rubenstein, you have 2 very amazing secretaries at home. I said, thank you, Rebbe. He goes, yeah, they were so polite, so well-mannered. He goes, but I have to tell you, I right away knew that you weren't home. He goes, it's probably best they don't pick up the phone. I said, Rebbe, you're talking to the woman who knows that. So this is just from a Rebbe's perspective, who he right away nailed it, that they were home alone. Because that tagline, my parents are unavailable, please call back, everyone knows is a cue, I'm home alone and no one's with me.
We actually went into the precinct on 60th and 16th and 16th and asked them what's the legal age, and they said legally you cannot be under 16 and by yourself.
So it's very interesting.
There's a couple of parks that got arrested because they left a 12-year-old.
Right, it's so interesting. I actually checked it, and they told, she said 16.
Okay, one second. I have a detective here who actually works in this system.
Look, he's going to tell me yes, 12-year-old cannot be left alone.
What's the legal age?
There is no legal age.
No legal age, yeah. They told me it's a sense, they were telling me it's if you feel your child is responsible enough, you can have a 16-year-old that you wouldn't leave alone because they're not responsible. It's really age level. If your child,
Were they arrested then if they
I don't know.
could be a little to the story.
Yeah, you don't hear everything
Yeah.
when the media advertises things.
16 and a parent could get arrested if they leave.
I also
My 13-year-old son was babysitting, and then my mother told me in a panic, you can't, you know.
You can.
There's no.
So, but there's no official. You're saying
No
according.
boy could babysit for his little brother technically.
I'm saying that there's no legal age.
No legal age. He's saying that if you feel that 14-year-old boy is,
Talking about legally, I'm not talking about.
There is
No,
no
no
legal
legal
age.
age.
But obviously, according to if something happens, right? If something ends up happening in the house, the spotlight shines on you that you left your kids home alone.
Correct.
That's the way it goes. There is no legal age officially, but if something occurs in the house,
correct.
Exactly. Then
But I
once
will,
something
right.
happens,
But I
then
will
you're-
tell you that even in all the research that I was doing about when should you leave a child at home, they all say, they give no age. They say when you feel your child, there are parents that are both working and they have no choice but to have their child come in alone, and they have to say, they give you all the parameters of making sure your child is comfortable. Is your child okay with it? If your child's not okay with it, even if he's 14, 15, 16.
Saying then you put yourself for like the situation of being arrested, and it could be something that like even though the child is responsible, something happened that was through no fault of his own. But let's say to a cop, he might say, well, you know, X, Y, and Z, and so it gets, I think, pretty like.
right. Well, every
I don't know.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, the rest question. We're like, yeah. He's going to answer them. Yeah, he's going to speak.
So
Yeah.
we'll go through the legal stuff.
Okay, accepting a treat from somebody, from a family member, coach, what's the rules? It should be across the board, which you're going to see. Your child needs to ask you first before they accept something. Bus drivers, we've had that, where bus drivers try to get kids and they try to see who they're able to engage by giving them small little gifts. You know, a favorite uncle who's giving gift. It's not that the child can't take it. The child needs to know that they need to tell you. For example, that girl who wants to take the candy from the bus driver needs to be able to tell her parent when she comes home, oh, the bus driver gave me a candy. So that the mother can't just say, oh, thank you, honey, for telling me. The mother then needs to take the next step of going the next day to the bus and saying, oh, Joe, you know, my daughter told me you gave her candy. That's really sweet. You know, I know it's really nice. You know what, in the future, it would be amazing if you can ask me first, but thank you. That tells Joe, the bus driver, this girl is talking to her mother and her mother knows what's going on. It's not that everything is quiet, because you don't want your child to get into that situation where someone is giving her things or giving him things and the parent is unaware and knows nothing about it. Okay, taking rides, right? Your child getting a ride from someone. It's such a simple thing. It really is. For a child to just know, I need to make a phone call and ask my mother. If it's not what was planned, I need to ask. My own daughters were they go to Leib Beis Yaakov. My sister came back this past year from seminary, and she decided to go pick them up from school as a treat to take them out. Now, she called me, but she didn't get me. And she left me a message on my voicemail saying, I'm going to get Kayla and Eliana from school. They're not going to take the bus. I'm going to pick them up. My daughters came out of school. Their aunt was there, and she said, hey, guys, I'm going to take you, da-da-da. And they got into the car with her, and they went off to pizza. Now, I was unaware of that because, again, I had not answered the phone. My husband calls me up at about 5 o'clock. He goes, what's the deal? Don't the girls come home at about 4:30, 4:40, the latest? I said, they're not home yet. He said, no. I said, it doesn't make sense. I called up the school. The buses were running on time. There was no issue. It was about 15, 20 minutes where we were both in a panic about where my daughters were when they were very nicely at the pizza store with their aunt. And I said to them, when I called them, and I was talking, I had listened to my voicemail, and I called them and I spoke to them, and my sister's like, you know, don't get them in trouble. It wasn't their fault. And I said, but it is their responsibility to call me, to say, you know what, Devari, can we use your phone? We just have to tell our mother that we're going with you. And if you don't get me, call your father. But you cannot get into that car without letting someone know, I changed the plan. My plan was to take the bus. I'm not taking the bus anymore, so I need to make sure that's okay with the adult that's in charge. Talking to an adult. Again, a child should know that unless you're with them, they should not be engaging in full conversations with other adults. And it needs to be something where they know, you know what, if somebody's having an entire conversation with me, I need to make sure that I go and tell the person or talk about it to someone else. Shani's going to cover all those types of concepts of why we make such an issue about these types of things. And again, changing a plan, very big. That a child should not be changing a plan, going to the pizza store, going to a friend's house without telling you first. Now, the next slide is a video. Again, we're only showing you the part about answering the door because the answering the door one is so big. In all the schools we went to, the number one thing that you hear these kids say, even as a second grader, third grader, of course I can open up the door. I just look through the window, and if I know who's out there, I open it. You have to start telling your kids the rule is there's no answering the door. They should be coming to tell you. They should be coming to ask the housekeeper of the housekeeper at home. They should not be just allowing people. They should not be going to the door and answering it. This is the next clip, so you could just take a look at. Oh, hold on.
You think they get it, but if put to the test, would your child open the door to a stranger? First test, the kids do exactly what they were told to do. Stuber knocks, but the door never opens in our next test. Our mom, Michelle, watches from the van her 11-year-old son, Jacob, home alone. Stuber will pose as a maintenance man with the hidden camera and microphone rolling.
Hi, we're changing the air conditioning in the apartments today. The filters, can you show me where your filter is? Your air conditioner?
Have you already checked her?
Yeah, I checked theirs, checked all of them. We need to do yours now. Where's your thermostat on the wall? You know what I'm talking about? Let me show you real quick.
Now Jacob, although nervous about letting Stuber in, still opens the door. Watch what happens next. Stuber will get Jacob to open the door 2 more times.
You know where it's at?
I know where it's at.
Can you go measure it for me? Just measure it with your hand. See how big it is, like this, okay? I'll wait right here.
Jacob agrees, leaving the door unlocked and comes back again.
Show me. That big? Okay. You got a pen?
I can go that one.
Give me a pen or a pencil, real quick.
Once again, Jacob leaves and returns, this time giving us dangerous information.
And what's your name, sir?
Jennifer.
Jacob?
Yep.
Okay. And when'd your mom get home?
About 6 something.
6 tonight, 6 p.m. Okay. And your phone number?
83.
That's where we cut off our test. Stuber comes back to the van to tell our mom what happened.
He didn't want to let me in, so I thought, okay, I'll send him away. And he came back and brought me a pen. And then we stood there at the door and talked. And of course, he gave me his phone number, his mom's name, when she gets home, where he goes to school. But you just wanted to be nice, huh? You want to be a good guy and helpful.
I thought you were someone who worked here, so
That's what I said, yeah. See, the thing is, what's so important about this is that the biggest danger is just opening the door. I'm a big guy, I can just push myself right on in, and that would be all she wrote.
So again, the door, huge, just something that you don't even want to get into it. And these are really the rules that we teach in school. If you can help us by really enforcing them across the board, it'll be very helpful. Begin when a child is young, and they really will do it. It'll become second nature. Start when they're young, and it'll become second nature. And remember, your child is not a mini adult. You cannot expect them to make decisions on their own. And if you give them that ability of just deciding who it's okay to and who it's not, who it's okay to get in a car with, who it's not, you're giving them a lot of responsibility that they're just... In today's world, the climate we're in, for individuals who are trying to trick a child, you're giving your child a lot of responsibility that you don't want them to have. Rules need to be consistent. You want to role play. Most important thing is role playing, doing what if scenarios. You want to show them, not just tell them. You know, if somebody comes and pulls up and opens up the door, what are you going to do? And etc. Go through different scenarios. And constant reinforcement. Reminders is key. When I left my house tonight, it was the first thing I said is, again, remember, and I have, mind you, I have my 17-year-old, and I was right away, guys, what's the rule? If anyone knocks on the door, you do not need to answer it. There's no opening up the door. It's constant reinforcement. It's not just you taught them once and they're good to go. You always have to be mentioning it when you're going places. These are the rules. This is what we need to follow and being consistent. Okay. Yes. Right.
Goes on with people that they know.
That's right.
Trust. So this is all strangers.
But it's not. That was the whole point. You came a little bit, you came after I did the first part. What we were saying is that we're not... Correct, but that's what I'm telling you. We're not talking stranger danger, because a child needs to understand these rules are across the board. Why do you think I said, when you're asking a child to make a decision between the UPS guy, to his uncle, to his grandfather, you're now telling the child, you're giving them too many choices. So the child then gets to decide, well, when is it okay, when is it not? I don't want my uncle, I don't want, let's say, my brother in my house if I'm not aware of it. Not because I'm worried. I want my child to know that, you know what, before I open up the door to my uncle, I'm calling up my mom and saying, hey, you know what, so-and-so is here. He needs to get something. Can I open it? There has to be, the child needs to know, there's a big factor. The minute a child tells someone, no matter who it is, someone they know, someone in shul, a neighbor, a friend, an uncle, an aunt, the minute they say to them, oh, I want to take that present. Oh, I want to go with you. I just need to ask my mother. I just need to ask my father. You know what that says? That tells that individual, stay away from this kid. Because this kid is talking with his parents. And whatever I'm going to try to set up the stage to do, he's going to tell. So those children are so much more protected. We're protecting them from the get-go. You're making these rules across the board. It's not strangers. The rule is consistent with everyone. That's why when you said, well, why can't they open up for a grandparent? I said you're giving them then choices. And you're going to have them make a choice that may not be the one you want them. Across the board. Bobby's at the door across the board. I knocked on my kids' doors, on my own door, because I forgot my key and we didn't have a lock time as a key. And I was knocking and I'm screaming into the house, Eliana, Kayla, it's mommy. And I literally hear them from inside, Mommy, but we can't open. And they're running upstairs to the housekeeper, Carmen, Mommy's at the door, can we open? I'm their mother. And I was telling them, if the grown-up in charge at that point is Carmen, then you need to ask Carmen, because she's the grown-up I'm leaving you with. You have to get them into that concept of, I'm just approving it with someone. Yeah, you're welcome.
Does it play into like the trust factor? Like, how do they have relationships with their peers? Like,
so, but they do. That's the beauty of it.
Do they need to ask someone to sit next to someone during lunchtime? Like, I'm just curious.
No. Again.
So I don't know yet.
Right. But again, when they're in school, their trusted adult is their teacher, right? That's the grown-up that's a trusted. So the teacher is involved in what's going on and so on and so forth. If somebody in school, one of their peers or another teacher comes and says, oh, Chaim, you need to come with me somewhere else, they should be trained to check in first with their teacher. Oh, Mora, so-and-so wants me to go somewhere. So-and-so wants me to go to the bathroom with them. There should be that check-in system for sure. But it does not make untrusting kids. We talk about this all the time, and Shani, because I've been doing this for 10 years, we talk about it all the time that my kids are the most trusting people around. They're actually more trusting. Why? Because there's nothing for them to be afraid of. Because they know that there's anything ever happens, they're always checking in through me. So the trust factor is actually much more.
You're not telling them every little detail. You're telling them standard rules, which is what we listed, was opening the door, answering the phones, getting into a car, changing a plan, taking a gift or treat. That's not about, can I have a secret handshake with my friend, or can I sit next to my friend, or can I go, can I go play basketball in the backyard with my friend? Those are not those things. We're trying to give you the pieces of the puzzle that we consider the grooming techniques that predators do to kids in order to get them to that situation. You don't want your kid going off with somebody alone just because they decide to do it, or taking gifts from somebody without asking you, because that's part of the process. Those are the kind of the guidelines. Having open communication with your kid in general is paramount to anything in your entire life. But you're not asking them to check in every move they make. You just don't want them going with another adult or an older child without checking in with you before they are actually changing locations or doing something private with that person.
But again, those rules, even with the classroom, you don't want your child walking out of the classroom with another student into the bathroom without checking with the teacher. Is it okay for me to leave the classroom? You know what I'm saying? You have to keep that. You want to make sure that wherever you are, a child, there's someone aware.
But that also falls on the school.
Correct. An adult. And what we teach them is checking in with the grown-up adult in charge. Like I said, Carmen, the housekeeper, was the grown-up adult in charge at that point. She was the person that was supervising them. They would have to ask her. So that's, the difference.
Okay. Oh, yes. So if you're home and you want to let them answer it, it's one thing. You can talk to them about what your rules are in your own house, about, if it's okay, what they should say. You're home, they're calling you, it's one thing. But again, until the kid is of a certain age and they really can understand what you're explaining, younger kids really get themselves into trouble. The whole point of this is we always get the question of, aren't you getting very overprotective or teaching them these things? What's the point? And the point is that for a healthy person, we can't understand why we need these rules. From a healthy person's perspective, why would this lead anywhere? What's this going to do? What's the problem? But you have to, when you're creating programs like this, what we do is you have to think like the predator. You have to think like that perpetrator. How am I going to get into this child's life? How am I going to get into this family's life? Not just the child, into your life. They're thinking about the parents as much as they're thinking about that child. How can I get into your child's life? All of these things are the way it's done. We're talking about the bus driver, right? We gave the example of the bus driver and how the mother is supposed to go over to the bus driver and say to the bus driver, I know that you gave my child a candy. Why? Because when you say that information, I know that you gave my child a candy. My child told me. That is get away from my child. If you're saying to the person, I'm checking with my mom before I get into your car, you're telling that person, I talk to my mother. The kids that are not saying those things are much easier targets. Perpetrators, they test the child. Will this child tell their parent that I gave them this present? When they don't, they go on to the next thing, and then the next thing, until it's too late. We're trying to create this kind of culture of preventative measures before the child ever gets into that position, chas v'shalom. That's the goal here. So again, the phone situation really is individual. If you're home and you have a kid who's old enough to understand what you're telling them and you want them to be able to answer the phone because it's convenient for you and it's just easier, wonderful. But give them guidelines of what they should say, what they shouldn't say. Explain to them that if they ever feel uncomfortable, they could just hang up. Again, this whole polite concept really comes into our kids' lives very often, and they feel like they can't get out of that conversation with the grown-up. They can say certain things. But if they feel uncomfortable, if they feel like too much personal information is being asked, they can just hang up. It's okay, I won't be mad at you. That's the kind of conversation. Okay, yeah. So, okay, you have a 4-year-old. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. Right, so 4-year-olds are a different story, and we're going to talk about it a little bit now, okay? So basically the concept was, right, we just told you all this information, right, we're done, wonderful, you teach your kids, you go. Wrong, okay? The bottom line is, Children will make mistakes. We just taught you tons of information to teach your children, and you should teach your children this information. And it should be age appropriate. For a 4-year-old, you're not going to go into all these details about everything was said. You're going to do what they can do. Opening the door, answering the phones are perfect for a 4-year-old, but it's going to have to be reiterated over and over and over and over. But small children are different than older children, and even older children we have to talk about. Children make mistakes, okay? Parents are the most important part of prevention. Do not assume your children will make the right decisions, because they probably won't, okay? And they may not do it the first time, and maybe you'll teach them again, and maybe the second time they'll be okay, but they will make mistakes. It's just the way it is. Younger children need constant supervision. I don't care if you think you taught them all these rules. They will not get it. They just won't get it. They might get it once, and you think, oh, they did the right thing the first time, but they won't be consistent in that right decision. They need to be supervised, okay? You can't rely on that child to make the correct judgment. Adults are different, right? We have the benefit of judgment and experience, right? And even adults, there was a police study on women and crime, and how women fall victim to all these different crimes, and why that happens. And it all comes down to this kind of thing that we have, that we want to be polite, right? How many times do we go and we're about to get on an elevator as a woman, and there's this creepy guy on the elevator. You just don't like the look of him. For a split second, you think in your head, I should not get on this elevator. But right on the heels of that thought is, oh, I'm being silly, right? Nothing's going to happen. What's the big deal? It's fine. And you get on the elevator. And then in your head, you're thinking, oh my gosh, please don't kill me. Let me get out of this elevator. And you should not have been on that elevator. If adults are making that mistake, how do you expect children to make the right decisions? How do you expect them to be able to say no to that adult? It just doesn't happen. You have to practice. Okay, you need to teach them basic safety skills. Now, when you're talking to children about different topics, a very important thing is also when they tell you about situations that come up, even a bullying situation in school, even something that they're having a problem, don't jump in and try to fix their problem. Oh, I'm going to call that person's parent, or I'm going to go down to that school. I mean, I'm very guilty of this. I work on myself with this a lot, because as parents and as mothers, as fathers, we want to fix the problem. But what that does is it makes the child not want to tell you because they think you're going to make the problem worse. We want to help them with solutions on how to kind of deal with things, and not just jump in and fix everything. Communication is everything, okay? Encourage your child to tell. Don't talk about tattletaling, right? This is a big factor. When we go into the schools, and we were in a bungalow colony this summer, which really shook me to my core. I taught a bunch of, I think they were in 6th grade, girls. And we were talking about the topic of body safety, body boundaries, and safe and unsafe secrets, and talking about things. And I had a few girls, Beisakov, beautiful, amazing, wonderful girls, telling me, oh, we can't tell people those kind of things because it's Lashon Hara. It says even you have to jump into a fire before you would say that Lashon Hara like that. Of course we have to teach Lashon Hara. Of course we have to teach those topics. It's paramount to our entire existence. But children have to understand, when it comes to safety, when it comes to mommy, when it comes to daddy, that's not Lashon Hara. Okay, I got that from my son the other day. Oh, something's going on in school with a friend. No, who was it? What's the problem? I can't tell you, Ma, it's Lashon Hara. And I have to say, it's not Lashon Hara to mommy. Nothing's Lashon Hara to mommy when mommy and you are talking. Would not tell me. It's a big problem. They have to understand that it's not tattletaling to mommy or daddy. It's discussing a solution to a problem. It's figuring things out. It's making sure that you're safe. It's very important that children know this and that you talk to them about these kind of topics. They need to have a safety net. They need to have these trusted adults. Like we were talking about the teacher, right? Mommy and daddy are not always with them. It has to be like, who are you going to go over to in this situation, in that situation, right? That's what we were talking about before. If they're lost on a street, right? Somebody that works in a store, a teacher in school, a principal that they trust. They need to know that there are adults out there that can help them if they need that help. Okay, be involved in your child's life. So for younger kids, when we're talking about play dates or babysitters, so you do the best you can, right? You research as much as you can, you get references, whatever, and you figure it out. What's the most important piece here? Is when you come home from that outing to the babies, when you come home to talk to your kid after a babysitter, or when they come home from a play date, sitting down with your child and saying to them, not, oh, how was it? Fine, wonderful. No. How was your play date? Did you have a good time? What did you play there? What was different in their house than in our house? Who was home? Engage in conversation. Would you want to go there again? Were you comfortable? Talk. Don't just ask, how was it? Fine, end. No, you need to engage and figure it out. When your children are old enough to go out babysitting to other people's houses, right, teenagers, talk to them as well. We've heard, unfortunately, a lot of stories of girls going out to babysit and being driven home by fathers and having very, very horrible experiences on the way home from their babysitting experiences, okay? Is it a common thing? No. Does it happen? Yes. Do you have to talk to your daughters when they're going out? If you're uncomfortable when you get there, please call me. I will pick you up. I will come stay with you no matter what. 1,000%. When they get home, was everything okay? Do you want to talk about anything? Communication? 1,000%. That's your job as parents. Ask who, what, where, when questions. Don't ask open-ended questions, right? How was school today? Fine. You know, everybody has those kids that, you know, just don't talk, right? What did you do today? Nothing. What did you eat today? Nothing. How was everything? Fine. You didn't do anything the whole day? No. Wonderful. Those kids could drive you bananas, right? So sometimes you have to kind of be a little creative. You know, you're talking to your child, they don't want to talk to you, so you start talking to them, right? One of the things that works is, oh, I had such a bad day today, you know, I was supposed to go to work and I was stuck in traffic. Start talking about your own life. Don't wait for them to talk, and sometimes it helps them kind of join in on the conversation. Some kids need more time. My daughter is very, very closed when it comes to her being upset about something. It takes her a long time to talk about something. I'll wait it out. You know, don't push. But then before she's going to sleep, everybody else is sleeping, I sit down and then it comes out. Give them time. Don't just forget about it. But some kids just need different types of tactics. But don't just forget about that kid because they don't want to talk. Okay, asking the right questions is very important, right? Where are you going? What's on your mind? Where did you get that? You notice your kids getting certain presents or certain things that you don't know where they got it from, and they're just telling you, oh, somebody at school gave it to me. Don't just, oh, somebody at school gave it to me. Oh, really? That's so nice of them. Who gave that to you? You know, do they give it to anybody else? Ask these kind of questions when you see something. Who are you spending time with? Be involved in your child's life. The power of a parent is huge. You are your child's first defense. You are your child's best resource. That's very important. You have to be consistent. You have to be clear. Mixed messages are very detrimental to a child's life, and we all are guilty of this. I'll give you perfect examples, right? Your kid, you know, had a mother the other day, we were sitting there, and the kid said, I want a kiwi, I want to eat a kiwi, right? You are never to use a knife. Never to use that knife. I heard this story from another therapist, very interesting. Never, right? Never using a knife. This kid was 9. And then the kid's waiting for the kiwi, waiting. It's taking long, so she starts to kvetch, right? I want that kiwi. I really want it. I want it. And what do they turn to say to the kid? Oh my gosh, you're always kvetching. You can't do anything for yourself. You just told the kid that they can't take it by themselves, and now you're telling them that they can't do anything by themselves. We do this kind of stuff all the time, right? You give your kid supper. You serve this magnificent meal. You make a huge meal for that kid, right? And right before bed, I'm so hungry, right? I'm starving. And what do we say? You're not hungry. We don't validate our children. You're not hungry, you just ate supper, right? Maybe the kid's hungry. Maybe he is hungry. Maybe she's hungry. Just saying to them a little tweak, right? Oh, you know what, sweetie, I'm really sorry that you're hungry, but you're going to have to wait for breakfast tomorrow. Or, I'm so sorry you're hungry, there's a carrot for you in the refrigerator. It tells the kid, I believe you're hungry, but this is the rule. That's it. End of story. You know, we're cold, right? It's so cold in here, take a sweater. Right? We're so cold, take a sweater. The kid's not cold. We're cold, take a sweater. These are all mixed messages for children in general that all add up to what a kid talks to you about. Validating their feelings, validating their emotions. You don't have to give in to them, but you have to be consistent with that they say certain things and you believe them, that you acknowledge them. These are all very important to children. The next thing I'm talking about here is very important. Youth serving organizations. That is schools, camps, Sunday programs, choirs, all of these organizations, okay? They need to take proactive measures to ensure your child's safety. But the parents are the ones that need to be vigilant in this concept. You have the power to make safety a societal norm. Not the, oh my gosh, that school is so amazing because this is what they do. No, it shouldn't be that one school. It should be a norm of society that child safety is paramount, especially in an organization that is dedicated to watching all of your children. It should be a basic, but it is not. And it is our fault. It is all of our faults because we don't ask the questions. We don't care. I took my daughter to a Sunday program. Everybody goes to the Sunday program, so I figured it's great, right? But I walked my daughter in on the first day, and I saw parents dropping off their kids, smoke out of their car before the kid is even out the door of the car because, yay, free time for me. And I walk my daughter into the front, and I say, okay, hi, you know, there's art, there's swimming, there's a bunch of things. And I'm asking these girls questions. Well, who's watching my daughter? Where does she transition from activity to activity? Who helps them? Who's with them when they're changing? What if she needs a problem? Well, you know, what if she has a problem? What if I don't come to pick her up? How do you know who she's going home with? They're looking at me like I have 10 heads. And I know when I leave this room, they're going to be talking about that crazy mother that asks them 1,000 questions and who needs this kid and blah, 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 blah. But when I said to them, well, listen, I wouldn't give you my pocketbook or my diamond ring to hold for me for the next 4 hours. I don't know who you are. I never saw you in my life because you run a Sunday program that makes you okay. I'm leaving you my most precious possession that I have, and you can't answer me not one of these questions. I'm the crazy one, and parents are listening to me. Oh, yeah, it's good questions, good questions. But nobody else asked it, so I'm the crazy mother. Every parent should be asking these questions. You have to ask the right questions, but you can't be aggressive. You have to be assertive. Don't storm, you know, you have a problem with your school, like the doors are unlocked, or, you know, anyone can walk in there. There's problems in every school. There is no school that's at full, that's perfect, and it's very difficult to run a school, and I do not envy administrators of schools. It is very difficult, and it is very hard, and they have a lot to deal with, a lot, okay? So if you see a problem in your school, you go in, and you be assertive and nice, and you say to them, I'm noticing this is happening. Is there something that I could help you with to help change it? We need change, but we need change in the proper way. We can't go in screaming and yelling, this is not acceptable, you know, guns blazing, because that doesn't work. It never works. It shuts everybody down. You need to go in with the positive, I'm here to help you. What can I do to help fix this problem because it's not safe for our children? If we all did that, then change would happen, right? But at the same time, don't be the parent that becomes the hindrance, right? If a school actually makes a change for the better, don't be that parent yelling, you know, I double parked, I'm scared I'm going to get a ticket. How come you're not just letting my kid come out of the school, right? The school says you have to come and sign the kid out. That is a factor to protect your child. Don't be the parent yelling, I sent my mother-in-law to pick my kid up from school and you didn't let her go. Do you know what you caused me? And yelling and screaming, because guess what? They'll cancel the policy because of you. And if chas v'shalom something happens to another child, it's partly on you. It's just the fact, I sound harsh, but it is the adult's responsibility in the child's life to create these factors to make this the norm. I'm going to show you now a video clip that actually explains to you exactly what I'm talking about here. He's going to turn the sound on?
Yeah.
At the railroad track, everybody stay together. Michelle, stay with the group. Miss Thomas? Yes. I have to go to the bathroom. Is it an emergency? Yes. All right. Everybody stay here until we get back. Keep them together. Michelle? Are you listening? Yes. Mrs. Thomas said you're supposed to go back to school with me. Why? Because your mommy needs you. She's waiting for you. So come with me.
Right past the security guard. That's in a school setting, right? An outing in school. It's very important we ask the right questions. How are staff and volunteers selected? What is your screening process? Do you have reference checks? Do you actually check those references, personal and professional, right? Is your staff trained in abuse prevention? Very important. Think about it. Your children are with these people all day. And unfortunately, we know most abuse is happening in the homes. It is not happening in the schools. The amount of perpetrators in a school, you can really count on your hands. It is mostly happening in people's houses, which means that the schools are the #1 defense for this kind of abuse. The #2 person that a child discloses to, according to research, is a teacher. #1 is mom, #2 is a teacher. That means that a teacher needs to be trained in indicators of abuse, in disclosures of abuse, in how to handle the abuse. They are at the front lines. How could they not have any training on the topic? One-on-one policy and behavioral standards, right? We, as parents, if something happens with a teacher or a Rebbe or something that's like a little bit of an indicator, we'll go nuts. How could that have happened? Or how'd they get a loan? Or what's the story? But if you never ask them what their policies are, right? Do they have one-on-one policies? Are you allowed to be alone with the child? How do you figure this out? How can you complain afterwards about what happened? You never even asked. You don't know what the policies are. You don't even know if they have any policies in place. Ask the questions so they have to answer you. If you ask the question, if enough parents ask the question, they'll have to figure the answers out. They'll have no choice. We're sort of like they work for us, right? The choirs. I had a woman call me that she wanted to take her kid to audition by one of these boys' choirs. It was on a Motzei Shabbos. Her son really wanted to do it. Her son was about 7. So she brings him to the choir to audition, and it's in this building, and she's told you have to drop your son off and come pick him up 2 hours later. And she says, I'm not really comfortable with that. He's only 7. Can I walk him up and see what's happening? I want to stay with him. No, that's not how it's done. You have to drop off your kid. Tons of kids walking in and out, like complete hefker, okay? That's how it's done. We don't have parents here. We can't have everybody's mother here. It's, it gets too crazy. It's ridiculous. She's sitting there. Her son's yelling, I want to go, I want to go. She's, conflicted beyond. She ended up trusting her gut, and she took her kid with her. Obviously, her kid was super mad at her and really did not forgive her. It was really a sad situation. But guess what? The choir, that choir, so they don't want mothers there. Okay, they have a right to, right? We don't need a bunch of stage mothers with the kids. It could be a disaster. But they should have had things set in place beforehand, right? These are the rules. This is how we protect your child. They'll be dropped off here. This person will be waiting for them. They're never to be alone with another person. It's 2 at a time. Protocols, rules to help you as the parent feel okay with what's happening. But nobody cared. Everybody dropped their kid off. So this one mother's kid was upset. And if chas v'shalom something happened in that room, everybody is to blame in that room that didn't ask that question. Don't accept excuses, right? We know, we trust our staffs. We've been doing this for years. There have been no incidences. Don't worry. Don't believe that. There's not one school. Now, we've been in 20 schools so far. In every single school that we've been in, we've had at least a minimum of 5 disclosures of abuse per school from either adults or children in the school. 5 per school of 20 schools, and that's only the ones that actually came over to us. There is no school without incident. In the schools, I'm talking about in the community, not
disclosures where they came to parent meetings, because the whole training is parents, staff, and children. So disclosure that happened from a parent or from a child, not school-based related, coming from all around.
But my point is that no administrator doesn't know that this is happening, because all of these cases come across the administration's desk because they're dealing with the children's issues, right? We don't have the resources, we don't have the funds, I'll get to you 1 second, right? No other parent has an issue with this. You're just being overprotective. I get that a lot, right? No, but yeah, you're the only one who has a problem with this. You're very overprotective, right? Our principal did some sort of training like this, a while ago. Don't worry, we're on board. We have it all set up. Yes?
I'm just concerned, what is Magenu doing about getting into schools that don't want to?
All right, so we'll talk. That's a long conversation, and we will talk about that afterwards. Okay, I'll talk to you about that. Okay, internet. We're going to talk about that one minute, and there's a lot you can do to help with that also. Okay, the internet piece. Now, I could spend an entire night on the internet, so I am not going to. I'm just going to give you a little tidbit of it. Okay, these are very scary statistics. It's actually even worse than what I'm showing you. Okay, most children are online. Parents that think we don't have any devices in the house, we don't bring it, your kids are still online. A child that, I've had parents call me, I don't understand, I come from the most high home, I don't bring anything in here, how is this possible? Well, I'll tell you how it's possible. The kid can walk to the local bodega on the street, on the corner, buy himself a $30 phone, use it for whatever he wants, and throw it into the garbage. I've had 2 kids so far that parents called me, they were in the mirror, that did not buy their kids iPhones, but their kids came home with 2 iPhones. They bought it off this kid for $30 at school. This was it. The kids just, if they want it, they'll get it. It is what it is. Unfortunately, it's just a fact of life. And there's a lot of scary stuff on the internet, a lot of scary stuff. And it's funny because even there was actually a research study that was just done recently that actually scared me to my core, which is that we all think predators in general online. What's our viewpoint of predators online? They pose as children. It's adults posing as children, trying to lure the kid to meet them. The kid meets them. They end up being a grown-up. Well, that's what we always thought till now. They just did a whole study where there were adult predators telling these kids that they were adults. They were not lying about their age. Maybe they shaved off about 5 years or so, but they were saying they were adults. They were saying exactly what they wanted from these kids in terms of, all this gratification or whatever they were asking for, straight out. But I'll buy you, an iPad. I'll buy you such and such. I'll buy you stuff for whatever you're going to be doing for me. Do you know that I think about it, was about 80% the number of children met these people, okay? Not once, but twice. Why? Because the invincibility factor is much more greater in teenagers especially than we think. Okay, I'll go. I won't do anything. I'll just get the thing and then I'll leave, right? I'll just figure it out. I'll get my stuff and I'll get out of there. Like nothing's going to happen. Overexposure. Children give much too much information on the internet. Their passwords, their usernames. When they talk to people on the internet, they don't think about it. This is like, like the way they talk to people, this is how they talk on the internet, but they're giving random strangers, right, their personal information. Explain this to them. Talk about it. Take them out to the corner and show them a random stranger and say, hey, you want to go be friends with that person and go over to their house, right? The kid's never going to want to do that. Explain them. That's what they're doing online, right? We don't know. That person could be on the person online that's telling you A, B, and C, and D. But that's what it is. The grooming process online is just like we're discussing the grooming process before, all those factors that we talked about, online is also very simple, right? We meet in a chat room, then it becomes instant messaging, then it becomes texting and emailing, then it becomes phone conversation, and then it becomes talking and meeting. That's the process. It's not 1, 2, 3, boom, let's meet. It's getting to know that kid. By the time they're meeting them, the kid knows them so well, right? We're best friends. We've been talking online for 3 weeks, right? Everything's great. We're friends. We're going to meet up. They get exposed to inappropriate material. Very easy. We have, of course, filters, right? They have filters, they're great, wonderful. Your child could type in, how do I dismantle the canine filter? And it gives you step-by-step what to do and how to kind of figure that out. So filters are great and you have to have them. But are they your research? No. They're our friends, but they are not. Communication is your best friend. You need to talk to your kids about what's out there and what's the potential dangers that they have to talk to you. Encourage critical thinking skills in your children, not just in regular life, but on the internet, with people. When they're doing things, make the right decisions. Explain to them what the right decisions are and why they are making them. I trust you, right? Talk about the dangers. If you catch your child in an inappropriate site or doing something inappropriate, don't catch yourself. Don't just, I'm taking everything away from you. Use it as a teaching moment. Build trust with them. Explain to them why what's happening is wrong, because you saying, too bad, I'm taking it away from you, is not going to stop that kid from doing what he wants to do. But communication potentially can. Building that trust, starting that conversation, having them be able to talk to you about things can. Maintain that open dialogue, right? They need to be able to filter all the garbage they're seeing. They have to filter through somebody. You want it to be you. You want that person to be you, not some random person that they're going to get the wrong information from. And remember, time talking to your child is better spent than spying on them. Yes, we have to sometimes link things that things come back to us so we can read what they're doing online, for sure. Any parent that does that, it's the right thing. But you can't spy on your children forever, right? Your kid, when they get to a certain point, that's their life. Communicating is much more important. Okay, so now all the stuff we spoke about, why do we teach you all those concepts of the door, the phone, the presents, all those things? Because those are part of the grooming process. What is the grooming process? Predators groom children and groom families in order to end up sexualizing them and abusing them in the end. That's the point. Okay, so opening the door and getting into the car with their father's friend or their uncle's presents or whatever it is, all are for purposes from these predators. And their purpose is sexual abuse in the end. And that's the way it goes. And that is the grooming process. They target the child. They target you as the parent. They target you as the family. And they figure this whole system out to get into that child, to have this one-on-one relationship with this child in order to sexualize them. So the next part I'm going to teach you is literally just how to talk to your children about body boundaries. And it's very important because in the end of the day, if chas v'shalom a child gets into a situation, they need to know what is right and what is wrong. And if you don't talk to them about it, they will not know. Parents ask the same question all the time. Doesn't my kid know? Isn't it just second nature for them to understand that it's not appropriate or this shouldn't be happening? No, they do not. They really don't unless you talk to them about it. Teach personal body safety like any other subject. Just like you teach them, right, to wear a helmet, not to touch fire, very natural. If you need to practice, practice before you talk to them. Speak in front of a mirror, but do it with your child in a very natural, easy way. Their body is special. It needs to be protected. The earlier you start, the easier it is. The 4-year-olds are the easiest, okay, because to them, you're just teaching them like anything else. Once they get older, it does become more uncomfortable, but still important. Their body belongs to them, right? We have this cute thing we do with the little kids. We have them pick up their thumbs and yell, my body belongs to me. Do that with your little kids. Make it second nature, right? And say straight out. No one has the right to look at, touch at, or talk to them about the parts of their body that are covered by a bathing suit. I suggest you use the names of the body parts, the correct names of the body parts with your kids. It helps them not be as vulnerable. If you're very uncomfortable with that, and you can come up with a name or a Hebrew word or whatever it is that means that, then do that. Don't use cutesy names, okay? We've had very, very bad situations, which I'm sure the detective could, talk to you about also, is that, if a child has this cutesy name for something, it's much harder to figure out what they're trying to say. And when things end up in court and they don't have the proper language, it causes problems also. Use the proper language. They shouldn't be touching, looking at, or talking about someone else's private parts either. It goes both ways. They have to understand both, because unfortunately, younger kids especially, it doesn't have to necessarily be touching them. It could be touching someone else or showing them certain things. Yeah, they have to know both concepts. If someone does try to touch them, and this is the most important thing I'm going to tell you tonight, if you remember nothing else, remember this. If someone does try to touch them or make them feel uncomfortable, yes, you are telling them they could say no. You are telling them that they could say stop. But most children will not. They will not say stop. They will not say no. They will not run away, because we just said before that most abusers are people that the child knows and trusts and loves, which means that they're not saying no to this person. But the most important thing is to tell. You have to tell your child that no matter what happens, even if you didn't say stop, even if you didn't say no, if you tell me, you are doing the right thing. The child that walks out of a room that was chas v'shalom abused, that says to himself, my mom or my dad told me that I should say no, and I didn't. It's my fault. I can't tell. Different world than a child that walks out saying, I didn't say no, I didn't say stop, but I have to tell that's the right thing. We're in a different world. The abuse itself, right, won't happen more than once, because that happened. They told, let's figure this out, and the child feels they did the right thing. That is the most important thing to tell. Don't focus on the no. Don't tell them they're not going to get in trouble, right? I remember before I focused on this tell part, I used to tell my kids, right, say no, say stop, that whole thing. And then finally I switched it. And it was really important to explain to them, you know what? There are people out there that are unhealthy. This happens. It happens to some children because there are people that are not well. And they don't tell their moms or dads because they're scared they're going to get in trouble. I just want you to know you'll never get in trouble if you tell me. Adolescence. A very, very big lure for adolescents is showing them inappropriate content. Because people always will ask also, one of the most common questions, how could such an older kid get abused? How does that happen? Well, it's very easy to get into an adolescent's life by showing them inappropriate materials, right? You can come back to me whenever you want and I'll show you this. It's a great way to kind of get in there. Talk to them about what's out there. And if anybody ever shows them this kind of stuff, please come talk to me. Please, sweetie, it's somebody that's unhealthy. If that happens, I won't be mad at you. Let's just talk about it. Red flag, something's a little bit up with this person. I understand you're curious, and I will not be mad at you, but please talk to me about it. Saying things like, I will kill the person, somebody who touches my kid, very counterproductive. We had a girl who was being abused by her uncle, and the father had seen the girl in the room with her uncle, and he just didn't like the vibe between the two. And he told his daughter that exact phrase, if he ever touches you, I'm really going to kill him, you tell me. And the daughter was so scared that the father really was going to kill this uncle that she didn't say anything because she didn't want the father to go to jail. She was trying to protect her father. That's very counterproductive. Saying I'll kill them, they're crazy, those things don't work. But people are not well, they're unhealthy. Kids understand that. They understand sickness. And it's another type of sickness. Children need information. The research suggests that this is a major protective factor. Young people need information about what is healthy in order to gauge what is unhealthy. If we never speak to our kids about what's a healthy, appropriate relationship and what is healthy in terms of their development and in terms of their bodies, they will never know what is unhealthy. And then they will go seek out this information, and if they happen upon the wrong person, they will get the information from the wrong person. Okay, it's uncomfortable for us, it is. But one-on-one with your child, whether it's your husband or you, it's important to have those conversations. Now, chas v'shalom, something does happen to a child, and I'm going to give everybody a bracha in this room that it should never come upon any child that they have, or that they know, or anybody that is in contact with them at all. It should never happen to any of our Jewish children at all, any child ever, anywhere, that this should ever come, you should ever need this information.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, but chas v'shalom, it does happen. Okay, a child tells you something happened. They're explaining to you something went wrong and something happened. Very important how you handle that disclosure. What happens to you as the adult. You never blame that child. The onus, the responsibility is on you for that child's protection. Never ask that child, why did you go with that person? But why did you enter that door? I told you not to. Why did you get into that person's car without calling me? Didn't we talk about this? I had a woman disclose her abuse to me by a teacher of hers. This is going back maybe 40 years. She told me that she never told anyone before. She told, when she knew what I was doing, she told me that she was abused by a teacher in the classroom when she was about 8 years old. I asked her, you never spoke to your mother about it? You never told her why? Tell me why. I want to know. I want to know why you wouldn't tell your mother. It drives me crazy, these kind of things. And she says to me, well, a year or two before that incident, she was in the grocery store with her mother, and this man was trying to get her to come outside of the store by luring her with ice cream, and she was going. And her mother caught her on the way, and she stopped it. But she started screaming at her daughter, probably from fear. But the mother was yelling at her daughter, how could you walk out of the store with this man? Didn't I tell you never to go with anyone? And yelling and screaming and blaming the child for being a child, right? But it was probably out of fear. But because of that one incident, she could not tell her mother. She was so scared that she was going to get in trouble that she did something wrong, that she never told her mother what happened. And it's a very scary thought, but it happens. Stay calm. Control your emotions. You want to scream, you want to yell, you want to cry. Don't do it in front of the child. Believe your child. I believe you. Thank you for telling me, right? Use their language. Don't put words in their mouth. Don't ask them direct questions. Use their own language of what they're telling you. Never blame the child. Don't make promises you can't keep. Ma, I have to tell you something, but you have to promise never to tell anyone. No. Because you don't know what they're going to tell you. And if they tell you something that you have to tell, then you just made a promise that you're going to break, and you're another person that's disappointing, and the child can't trust you. I'm really sorry, sweetie. I can't make that promise because I don't know what you're going to tell me, but I promise you that I'll tell you whatever has to be done. I'll keep you in the loop with me. I won't make a move without telling you what I'm going to do first. That I can promise you. I'm so sorry this happened. I'm so glad you told me. You did the right thing. It's my job to keep you safe. Let's figure out that. And then explain what you're going to do from there. Be honest. Get support. Don't do this by yourself. Be proactive, not reactive. Don't react. You know, Leiby Kletzky, alav shalom, right? The story is a horrendous story. We think of it as this abomination that should never have happened and will never happen again. But guess what? Leiby Kletzky's parents, when they let him walk, they did a whole run-through with him. They did what we told you in the first part. They did a run-through with him, how to walk home, where to go, what to do. He knew what to do. They practiced. They did all the right things with him. And guess what? He still made a mistake. He still got into the car with that man because it was a Jewish man and he was lost, and he got in and he made a mistake because children make mistakes. And after it happened, everybody held on to their children a little bit tighter, but it fades because that's human nature, right? It fades. It's okay. Now we're fine again. Whoever doesn't know the story, okay, about a month or so ago, maybe a little more, a 7-year-old girl in Ashdod, Haredi girl in Israel, was waiting outside by dismissal. She was waiting to be picked up from school, just like all the other kids outside with her. And an Israeli cab driver pulled up and said to her, you know, your father sent me to pick you up from school. Come into my car. Your father sent me. I have a bunch of candy, which, by the way, candy and somebody sent me to pick you up are the two biggest lures for children. And she got in the car, and he drove her to Beit Shemesh, and he assaulted her. And she's 7 years old, and she went and she told exactly what he looked like, and they caught him, and he's arrested. But this 7-year-old girl, her whole life was changed by this one moment. And guess what? She made a mistake. Whose responsibility was it? I don't want to blame anyone. I'm sure everyone in that story, everyone involved is probably beyond devastated. There are no words. We should all never know. But where was a teacher or somebody to stop that person and say, let's just call your father and make sure this is accurate? And it's not that one teacher's fault, because guess what? All of our schools do the same thing. And we don't say anything about it because we're just very complacent. It's just the way it goes. Don't be reactive. Be proactive. Make safety for children a societal norm. Ask questions. Don't yell, don't scream, don't get aggressive, but ask the questions. Don't you think that your child deserves for you to be their advocate? Don't you think you deserve to know what protocols a Sunday program, a school, a camp has in place to protect your child that you're leaving for a very long period of time? Don't let tragedy be the catalyst for change. Make this a norm. We're going to talk about, this is the end of this part of the program tonight. We're collecting money, if you want to give, for this girl in Asha that was assaulted. In Israel, the government pays for about a year of therapy for a child that was raped or molested, but this child's going to need much more than a year. So we're trying to raise some money for her. If anybody wants to contribute, you can give it by the desk. On the note of why schools, how to get the program into schools, that's something else. You're asking why schools don't want to take us in, some of the schools. So we've been in a lot of schools, and a lot of schools don't want to take it in. Why? The reason for that are, we could probably all list them together. But my personal belief is that they're afraid. They're very afraid because I've gotten many different responses from schools. A few of them are our parent body, doesn't want to talk about this. They're very nervous about this topic. To which I respond to all the parents that call me, right? Call your schools and ask them, because if they don't know that you want it, they're not going to do it. They think that, they have things under control. I've heard from a couple of schools, oh, this doesn't happen here, click. People, there's not enough wants. Let's put it that way. There's not enough wants. I am one person, Sarit is another person, and I call schools and I'll say, I'm willing to come down, I'm willing to show you all of the programs. Our material, especially for the students, is very benign. It is very, very kid-friendly. It's nothing like what I'm telling you now at all. It's very, very kid-friendly. It's fine. But for the most part, oh yeah, you'll see some of the images when you walk in on the easels over there. Very, very kid-friendly. But the bottom line is that some schools won't even meet. They won't even listen. I'll tell them on the phone, just meet with me. You don't say no to me on the phone. Just meet and I'll show you what we have. And if you don't want it then, we could talk about it. But don't just say no without knowing what you're saying no to. Until everybody joins together and says, this has to become a norm. And even if you don't want to do the program for the kids, but do it for the staff, right? Train your staff. We did a school, a lot of these schools have these very young teachers. These girls right out of seminary, and they're so nice, and they're so innocent, and they're so sweet, and they're such good teachers, and they love their students. But they have no knowledge about these topics at all. They have no knowledge of indicators of abuse, any kind of abuse, not just sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect. No concept of it, and they never get trained in it. And they're in charge of our children, and guess what? When you go in and talk to them about it, it's like I feel sometimes so bad that I'm telling them the first time they're ever hearing it is from us, and we feel like, oh my gosh, we just changed their world. But these are the people taking care of our children. They have to know, right? This is something that goes on. They have to know. You as parents have to be advocates. You have to call. You have to make safety of our children a norm. That's the way it is. I'm going to introduce